Guys, when I say that P2B is Tinubu's greatest nightmare, P2B is APC's greatest nightmare. Watch this video, guys.
Stand before you today to endorse the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, His Excellency Peter Obi. We have carefully evaluated the stances and policies of all the candidates, and I have come to the conclusion that His Excellency Peter Obi is the best choice for our nation.
Shall we just make it to endorse Peter Obi by Islamic clerics here in not only in Kano, in the northern part of Nigeria.
There's no religion in politics. We are just focused on integrity and accountability. So all of these characters, all these good behaviors, is His Excellency Peter Obi of Labour Party. He is the one of all of the presidential candidates that has it, so that is why we Islamic preachers, we Northeast, we Northern, we are here to solidarity and endorse to defeat Obi as a president Federal Republic of Nigeria in this coming election.
Suna ci da gumumu mu ba yaran kowa bane. Ba za kuma zo a samu abubbar riga ba samu aljihu. Kawai ana neman wazi.
The biggest problem, and I kept saying this even before election, the biggest weakness and the biggest threat that presidential campaign had was Labour Party. If Mr. Peter Obi had run as an independent candidate, there's no how they would have been able to rig. There is no how. Because it was dependent on party. The party first of all went on, for them to even release this thing, oh yeah, let's be able to impute agents or whatever. That's what they did. They changed everything. They were the biggest threat that we had. They thought even the obedient, they saw the obedient as their enemies. I kept telling them, I said, you guys are the ones that are going to be the party in power, not us. They can't think big. Their small-mindedness was the reason why Tinubu was able to rig election. The biggest problem, and I kept saying this even before election, the biggest weakness and the biggest threat that presidential campaign had was Labour Party. If Mr. Peter Obi had run as an independent, the biggest problem, and I kept saying this even before election, the biggest weakness and the biggest threat that presidential campaign had was Labour Party. If Mr. Peter Obi had run as an independent...
Let me begin by saying that the statistics being given about the percentage scored by Labour Party in the 2023 general election is erroneous.
It's what?
Erroneous. It's not correct.
Yeah, but the election was challenged. Wait to
let me land, Dr. Abati.
Okay.
We have a situation where figures are allotted to various political parties. The tsunami that greeted the presidential election in Delta State was unprecedented for Labour Party. And some of us, including my very self, were offered humongous sums of money, such that I've never seen in my life, to support the ruling party, PDP. We rejected it on principle. And during the coalition, our people were thoroughly brutalized. So we have figures to show that in Delta State, Labour Party won the election at the governorship level and the presidential level. It was also attested by the former deputy, I think, chairman of APC South during his interview or discussion with Dr. Pato Tommy recently on a radio station. So yeah, we know you won the election, but we give you whatever we felt like. So this idea of allotting figures to political parties, we accepted it because we were not ready for it. We did not expect the kind of shenanigan that went on during the election. We're better prepared now.
Yeah, but I wanted you to talk about the defection.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Basically, it's we have harlots of Jericho in Delta State. Harlots of Jericho. People who will use their positions to invite foreigners to invade them and occupy the territory. But we know better. They are protecting their loot. Delta State, over the past how many years of democracy, has been bedeviled by inept leadership. We all know it, and we've been crying out. Unfortunately, we have a situation where there is hunger in the land. It has been weaponized. But we are trying as much as possible to let the people know that despite these defections, their lot will not be better if they keep following those characters that I call harlots of Jericho. It's not going to affect anything. One, I do agree with Ezeagu for once, that there'll be serious implosion. Look at the characters that have defected for personal interest. All of them without exception. If you talk about Delta North, it's going to be worse because those defecting are all gunning for the same positions. I wonder how it's going to pan out. So let them go. We're waiting for them. It's not going to affect anything. The fortunes of Labour will be better enhanced by their defection.
Okay, a number of issues to unpack here. The first being, I'd love to know what the status of Labour Party in Delta State is currently. It's been almost 2 years, well, over 2 years, excuse me, since the presidential election. And of course, we know that Labour Party had a moment, but that many people call the Peter Obi effect. However, since then, so many things have happened within your party, especially at a national level. Does Labour Party Delta State, are you behind Abure? Are you behind Nenadi? Well, I'd love to know from you, which way is Labour Party in Delta State inclined? And how are you looking for ways to reconcile those wins that you saw during the presidential election that didn't materialize during the gubernatorial election? Is there any way you think you can reclaim the disparity that happened there in your favor?
There is something that people are talking about generally now about Labour Party. In Delta State, we believe that Peter Obi's presidential ambition was given birth in Delta State. The umbilical cord of the obedient movement is buried in Asaba. So we don't even reckon with Labour Party as a party at the moment in Delta State. In answer to your question, we see
obedience in Delta State.
Absolutely. So we look at the situation. We interact with some of them. They are our friends, but we know that most of them are agents of people who believe that money buys everything. Recently, we saw somebody called Julius Abure calling on the president to intervene in Labour Party affair. For God's sake, what does he want the president to do? You're calling a lion to come and interfere in the affairs of sheep. It's not going to work. So we just discountenance them. What is happening in this country is lack of intrepidity in the handling of judicial matters by the courts. The Supreme Court gave a judgment. They did not go fully to the end. You say that Julius Abure's tenure has expired. What does that imply? If his tenure has expired, the Constitution of Labour Party, NEC, says that the highest ranking officer becomes the head of NEC. And the highest ranking officer in Labour Party today is the governor of Abia State, followed by his deputy, the leadership of NLC and TUC. They form the NEC, and they should take decisions. But we know how justice is procured in this country. I'm not going to dwell on that now. But we are working. We're not deterred. We are working. And at the appropriate time, when the whistle is blown, we shall know who controls Delta State.
Well, it would be interesting to hear a bit of your plans, because against the backdrop of what we're discussing really is a really shifting political landscape. It seems with every moment the APC continues to get stronger and stronger, aided by these defections from the PDP. Yesterday, we've spoken at length about the People's Democratic Party, and the analogy was given that they're in intensive care. It's a very, very dire situation for the party. But for Labour Party, it does seem as though you're somewhat shielded from this defections issue on scale. But if you're looking ahead to the future, to 2027, what plans do you have in place to really be the formidable opposition that the PDP is so far struggling to do?
I'm going to a football match against an opponent, and you want me to come and expose my tactics to play football match with my opponent. It doesn't happen. I'm not here to come and tell you our strategy, but we are planning.
What about your team? Perhaps not your strategy. Who are your team?
Very strong, very strong. I can tell you for
Who's
sure.
up front for you?
We have obedience in Delta State that is ready to overwhelm any political party. I say it categorically. The obedient movement in Delta State will, not can, will overwhelm the merger of PDP and APC. Those people are slogan-based political parties.
Okay, Diopam, just before we go, you've been saying you have obedience in Delta State that will overwhelm any party. Well, obedience, that is not the title of any political party in the country. So can you tell us the difference between obedience and the Labour Party? Because you can only vie for an elective position on the platform of a political party. Or is obedience specially registered as a political party in Delta State?
You're falling back to what she asked me now to tell the strategy we're going to use. Obedience is not a political. Dr. Abati, you're too intelligent to try and catch me that way now. You're a lawyer. You know, let me tell you, obedience is a movement. You understand? And anywhere we go, we'll overwhelm them. It's like a weevil. You know how a weevil comes to a farm and overtakes it and overwhelms it? We are waiting for. The president of NLC, Joe Ajero, has written to INEC, giving them timeline to use the Supreme Court's judgment to determine. We're law-abiding people, the leadership of Labour Party. That will determine the obedient movement. And within 48, is it? I don't know, 28 days he gave them. And when that happens, you will hear from us, and then our strategy will be known to you. Until then, we'll keep it quiet.
Okay, thank you for joining us. But one major takeaway for me, the phrase you use, the harlots from Jericho in Delta State. When I use that phrase, another time,
quote me.
Please, they should know that I got it from
today. Nigeria today is not a democratic country. Let's stop telling ourselves lies. If you look at all the tenets, look at all the yardstick of measuring democracy, it doesn't exist here. Simple definition, democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. Today, the government we have is not of the people. It's not by the people because the people didn't vote. It wasn't their votes. I'm not just talking about presidency. Across the line, look at what happened in Edo. Can you call that democracy? It is not vote of the people. And it's not for the people. I've just told you that I went to an IDP camp where we have thousands of people, no primary health care. They were begging me to have one nurse, which I said I must make sure. They don't even have primary school, which again I told them I will make sure it happens. So what are you doing for a country that just spent 21 billion naira to renovate a house for the vice president, which is not, hasn't packed in, is not living there, and you cannot even have a primary school for kids who are going to be leaders of Nigeria tomorrow. For people who pass through the same process, tonight deny these kids this opportunity today. So it is not a democratic country. So it's not for the people. You can't have a democracy without a functional and effective legislature, which you know we don't have today. You can't have a democracy without, again, an independent judiciary that fights for the common person. I can go on and on. In a democracy, it is clear. There's guidelines. Even when you set for people vying for election, like in Nigerian case, you have to talk about people must be qualified. They must have primary school, secondary school, university, and must attain certain age. Charles, that is not happening today. People are with unverified, forged certificates all over the place, criminal records and everything, and they're in charge. So you cannot say that. It is, yes, maybe we're striving to be a democratic country, but the way we are today is not. Look at what happened in Rivers that you mentioned. Can you call that democracy?
I'm going to come to Rivers State
Yes.
in a minute, because it would obviously require some analysis and certainly your assessment of what is going on there. But they would argue, the president's aides, that Nigeria may be a faltering democracy, but nevertheless it is a democracy. And one of the hallmarks for assessing that democracy is freedom of speech, and the fact that you can sit here and criticize the government and be quite, forceful in your criticism, forthright, that is a manifestation of at least a measure of democracy.
Charles, I can tell you that even me is being harassed every day. There's no freedom of speech. And you know that yourself, Charles. And I can tell you, and there's so many people who are being detained in one place or the other because they've made one statement or anything.
Well, I haven't been harassed, to be fair. But
yes, yes, maybe you've not been, but I've been.
Well, that's unfortunate.
So I can tell you that even that doesn't exist. But we're not, when you say, yes, he exists, Charles, when you go for an exam and you score 10%, it's a fail. I'm just giving you the real measure of democracy. We failed in all of them. So it doesn't exist.
So having expressed this alarm, what do you anticipate to be the negative consequences of that threat to democracy that you talk about? What track is Nigeria heading towards as a result, and how damaging might that be? And how would you suggest Nigerians go about counteracting that?
Well, for me, we're headed, you know where we're headed. It will get worse. And when it gets worse, we're now going to threaten to a state of nature, of anarchy, where anybody can do anything you want. Everything is collapsing. Even when the people who are supposed to be seeing it are not seeing it. But you can see the negative impact in all the critical areas, even the education you mentioned, when you said people are being given scholarship to go to school.
Student loans.
Student loans. What is happening in our universities, Charles? Our universities now are politicized, where appointments for management of universities are now political. You now fail local government election, you're appointed on your university board, university governing board, where vice chancellors, they even have been appointed without merit and everything. And the consequences that you see universities now giving honorary degree to all manner of character of people. So even that is deteriorating.
His aides, and again, we have to balance the discussion, deny that there is any such threat to democracy. They say you're pulling the trigger on a non-existent gun and creating an unnecessary level of uncertainty where there is none. I wonder what your reaction is to that.
Charles, I said go to the people. It is not about me. I'm one with the people. They can say anything they like. You know, when you are in government, you claim anything. But I deal with the reality. The reality is that things are headed south. Go and check all indices of development anywhere. I've told you what is improving. Is our literacy level improving? Is our health condition improving? Even them that are in government don't even go to hospitals here. So that shows that it's not even improving. The same thing goes. Are people being pulled out of poverty? There's still hunger everywhere. Is the agricultural produce increasing? Is manufacturing increasing? No. So where is it?
So in the context of this high uncertainty with regard to democracy and the rule of law that you talk about, that suggests unpredictability and, especially for international investors, which is something they do not like. They don't like unpredictability. They don't like the lack of the rule of law, because obviously it threatens their investments. And ultimately that has an impact from what you're saying on the economy, doesn't it?
That's it. Charles, the first thing you can say that you have a government is security of life and property. rule of law. This is an intangible asset that you cannot ignore. It is critical. People go where there's law and order. Nobody goes where there's chaos. Where do you see the rule of law? You are here. You don't need to. I don't need anybody to tell you. You see it every day.
Well, all this talk about democracy and the rule of law leads me inevitably to what you talked about previously, which is Rivers State. I'm sure you've been seeing the rising political temperature there over the past few months, which has heightened with considerable tension. But was it enough for a state of emergency to be declared?
Capital no. You cannot, Charles, take the action that have been taken in Rivers State for what happened. There's a clear path to dealing with that issue. Rivers State for the past 2 years have become ungovernable for obvious political reasons and interests, which shouldn't be in a democratic environment. It's clear, it shouldn't be. I have been a governor, and I have left government, had issue with the person who had replaced me, with my successor. But for God's sake, the state is far more important than anybody. We have a governor who have been sworn in as the governor. He should be allowed to govern.
So what is your sense of what is behind that presidential declaration? Does it all seem straightforward, or do you detect a sleight of hand there? I mean, we heard a few days ago the former governor of Rivers State, Rotimi Amechi, alleging that President Tinubu's emergency rule in Rivers State is a tactic to intimidate governors who might not support the president in 2027. Is that a bit far-fetched, or do you subscribe to that school of thought?
Well, for me, what happened in Rivers State is very unfortunate and is impacting very negatively to the little or remaining inkling or democratic space we had. He eroded a lot from there. So, as for intimidating the governors for 2027, it shouldn't be. The governors are going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election. You're going to seek re-election based on what you've been able to do, your performance. On Nigerians, the governors just have one vote. It is because of what I told you that it is not a democratic country that you are trying to intimidate the governors.
So you believe that that's what he's trying to do?
If that is what I'm just telling you, if that is what he's trying to do,
right,
it's because it's not a democratic setting.
But is it what he's trying to do?
I believe so. I believe so.
And of course, the manner in which the National Assembly, you touched on this briefly earlier, approved that state of emergency with a voice vote is continuing to cause ripples across Nigeria and beyond. Do you agree or disagree with those who say that trust and confidence in the National Assembly has been eroded as a result?
Completely eroded. Very unfortunate. As I said, there's no functional legislature. It's not there. Our political setting doesn't exist in any democratic environment.
Okay, let me ask you to hold your thoughts there. Let's take a very short break and we will continue with this very interesting conversation, but to give you a minute to get a sip of water so that we can continue this chat. You're watching Arise Prime Time, plenty more still ahead as we continue our exclusive chat with the 2023 Labour Party presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi. Stay with us. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time, where we offer perspectives on the news and talking points of the day. I'm Charles Aniegolu. Tonight, the redoubtable and some say relatable Peter Obi, the man who was able to galvanize a wide base of voters across this country that feel stifled by what they see as the bad governance of the two main parties, the APC and the PDP, and the economic crisis that they've plunged the country into. Mr. Obi, they say, gave them the opportunity to say enough is enough. But the APC managed to beat back that challenge, but only barely. And as the next election cycle approaches in 2027, with the economy still limping and President Tinubu looking Janus-faced to many Nigerians with a growing authoritarian side, many believe that his ruling APC party is once again looking vulnerable. And the collective opposition are sensing a moment that is emboldening them. But can they cross the inflection point and turn it into the political tsunami needed to tip the balance in their favor in 2027? And Mr. Peter Obi, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in 2023, is still with me in the Arise studio. Thank you very much indeed for staying with us. You were talking just before we went on a break about what was happening in Rivers State, the state of emergency that was declared. You said it was unconstitutional, and you felt that the legislature, the National Assembly, had failed in its constitutional duty to checkmate that move. Were you struck by what appeared to be the absence of opposition voices in that process? I mean, you have Labour lawmakers in the National Assembly. You are a Labour man, Labour presidential candidate in 2023. And we didn't really hear much from them in opposition, did we? In spite of your very loud and unequivocal call for the state of emergency to be rejected. I mean, how much does that suggest that not only is the opposition, the Labour Party, very weak, but that you were unable to exert any influence on them?
Charles, before I go into the opposition, there were, even in the House of Representatives, a particular Labour member did everything possible to ensure that the right thing was done by ensuring that it is not a voice vote, that is a vote that must be properly recorded.
Yeah, you're talking about Obi Agwocha, who stood up, but that was a solitary voice.
That's what I'm saying.
Why didn't we hear more voices?
At least it's from Labour, because you said no opposition. At least from Labour, at least, and there were others like that. They were shouted down. Even at the Senate, there were voices like that, like former governor of Bayelsa State, former governor of Sokoto State. There were voices.
Yeah, but they were not Labour.
No. But you said opposition. Yeah. But in general, the Nigerian political space was designed not to have opposition. Opposition doesn't exist here, Charles. If you want to look at where opposition exists, you compare us with other countries with similar trajectory. People have called me and said, look at what the oppositions are doing in South Africa. Look at what the oppositions are doing in other similar countries. But let's just use South Africa, which is, of course, the biggest economy in Africa today. And what they are doing, they have presidential system, but have been able to have a system that allows opposition to exist in their system. You cannot have opposition that is effective unless you have proportional representation in the legislature. you don't have it, you're wasting your time. If you look at South Africa today, as it is, just check their election in 2019, ANC won 57.7% of the vote. They had 230 members. 2019, they had 40%. They had 160 members. While Democratic Alliance in 2019 had 20%, they had 80 people. In 2024, they had 21 plus, almost 22, they had 87 members. And that is the same thing for all other parties. And their leader is a member of that parliament. And you cannot cross from one party to the other, as you can do in Nigeria, without consequences. Once you cross from one party to the other, you lose your seat. Just even in the environment you know very well, the UK, you cannot have somebody from one party cross over to the other party without any consequence, without anything, and all that. So you have a system that works, and nobody's going to lure your member using contract, using this and all that, as is happening here. So it's a difficult thing. That's why we are clamoring that we must now change this constitution. We must now build a viable system. People have asked me, Peter, what are you going to do if you were there? I will make sure that this country is democratic. I will make sure that the opposition thrives by ensuring that I direct whoever and put all my own resources in terms of office to ensure that parties function the way they should. Today, they don't do that. You just have people doing all sorts of things in terms of, as I said, there's no democracy here. We need to fix it. Yar'Adua started doing it. He was sworn in here as the president, and he said, I will not allow the process through which I came to office to continue. I was a beneficiary of it, Charles. I had a free and fair second-term election. And that's what it should be. But instead of now having it growing the way you think things will be, we've taken 300 degrees reverse.
Well, you made a very interesting point there when you said that if you were to be the president,
yes,
that these were the actions you would take to shore up democracy in Nigeria. So let's talk about the positioning for power in 2027, because that's when, assuming you run for president, you will have another chance to test your popularity in Nigeria. Lots of reports about realignments and various political groups and individuals said to be coming together to wrest power from the APC. How much are you in that mix?
Charles, I'm one person who is very reluctant at talking about 2027. I'll just probably gloss over it. Because we have a critical situation, Charles, where we're not addressing it. We have a country that where our debt in 2015 is between 15 and 17 trillion. Now we have a country with a debt of 150 to 170 trillion. A country where our cost of debt servicing is now higher than our critical areas of budget for critical development, education, health, pulling people out of poverty. And we are discussing 2027. Charles, let's deal with what is happening today.
Yeah, but the fact is that you are discussing 2027.
I am part of it. I do all I'd say, and that's what I'm going to say now, is that whatever realignments, whatever coming together, we must discuss the future of this country. We're not just going to, I'm not going to be part of just wrestling power for power's sake. No. I want to know that we're going to do this in order to be able to invest in education, invest in health, invest in pulling our people out of poverty. How can a country with this size of uncultivated land not be able to feed itself?
Well, let me stay with that point of 2027. The reason is purely because it is enormously important, because those who support you, they want to see some sense of direction about what's going to happen next and whether or not you're going to try to realize that ambition again. I mean, some prominent opposition politicians have suggested that you should abandon your ambition of contesting the next presidential election and team up with Atiku Abubakar again as his deputy.
Which prominent politicians?
With an agreement, well, I'm not going to mention names, but I mean, quite a number of them have suggested that you should team up with Atiku Abubakar as his deputy with an agreement that after one term he will work to make you president. They say that without this alliance, both you and Atiku will lose in 2027. What is your reaction to that?
Charles, elections are won, elections are lost by the vote of the people. All these things you're talking and all these things people are talking is because we are not democratic. Charles, we are talking of working together for the sake of the country, not because of political posts. I've said it before.
But if you don't have political power, you won't be able to change the country.
Charles, agree with that. That's why I've always said, I'm not desperate to be president. I'm desperate to see Nigeria work. Charles, it is all these alliances, all these groupings that brought us to where we are today. Because people were blinded. Instead of seeing what they would do to make the country work, make the country productive, they were focused on wrestling power. What are we going to use the power to do?
Yeah, but you ran for office in 2023. You wanted to wrest power from
Yes, because I wanted to do something.
Right.
Charles, I wanted to do something. I wanted to use it. By now, you would have been seeing the impact on education visibly. And I'm not talking about people coming to say it in TVs. You will be seeing it visibly. I would have even been visiting the schools.
Well, that's why some of
the health. You would have been seeing the primary. We have over 70% of our primary care are not functional.
But that's why some of your supporters are saying that for you to make this happen, you have to be able. You've got to be positioned, they say, to win the presidency.
Don't say my support. Don't just say some of my followers. I want Nigerians to know it is about their country.
Indeed.
So many Nigerians today don't know where the next meal will come from. They don't know. Several people have been to hospitals where people can't leave the hospitals because they can't pay. We have less than 5% insurance, health insurance in this country, when comparable countries like Indonesia have 95%.
Yes, but you're not going to be able to change that unless you become president.
No, but the people have to know and know that this man can do it.
Well, the argument is that even if you win in 2027, you'll be forced or prevailed upon to hand over to the North after just one term in 2031, which will not be enough for you to fulfill these let me just make the point, these electoral promises. Whereas if you worked with a one-term Northern presidency in 2027, you'd be more likely to scale through in 2023 2031, assuming the North keeps to the agreement. Does that sound like a reasonable proposal to you? Because you mentioned Yar'Adua, who came into office. He had to come into office before he started trying to change things.
Charles, the president that is there today, how many years has he stayed? 2 years. And you could see where we are. Look at the turn of things in 2 years. That means that you can change things in 2 years. If I was there in 2 years, Charles, that you would have seen considerable change. In critical areas, I would have tackled corruption head on. I would have reduced cost of governance. And you will see it. People will feel it. And those monies invested in critical areas. Our primary health care today, I told you, 70% are not functional. And we spent over 35 billion in conference center. Which conference? Who is coming for the conference? You need to invest your money properly. Charles, you have been seeing borrowed money invested in critical area. We, a country in Bangladesh with 148,000 square kilometers of land, is producing about 60 million metric tons of rice. And us, with over 6 times that size of land, cannot do 10% of that. Charles, there's room here. You talked about devaluation of Naira. There's nothing wrong in devaluation. I would have done something. I would have allowed the Naira to float. But I would have done it in an organized manner. There will be productivity. The idea of devaluing your currency, allowing it to float, to be cheaper, is that you have productivity so you can export, so people can come and buy. But when you don't have productivity and you devalue your currency, it's double whammy because you have nothing to sell. So I would have injected money in productivity. Today, nobody is producing anything. Somebody told me a few days ago, say, oh, they've removed there's no more tax or this or some of the manufacturing inputs and everything. And all. I said, no. How can you manufacture? How can you do business when your interest rate is over 40%? Yeah, one of the biggest costs of manufacturing today, cost of production today, is interest rate. Charles, nobody borrows money at over 40% to do a business that is shared. You can only borrow, it's only government that is borrowing that amount of money at that cost. So you need to do the right things, and you can do it.
So what would be the thrust of your attack then on President Tinubu in 2027 that might tip the balance in your favor? I mean, you've talked about, the economy, you've talked about democracy, the rule of law, which you say suffered a setback. Given all that, what would be your strategy to erode confidence in the president and convince the Nigerian people to go with you rather than him?
It is not enough that your aides are running around. You, who is the main person, have to have an idea, be competent, have the capacity, have the compassion, the energy to do the job. It is not something you can lease out. Governance, leadership is not something you can just hire somebody else to do for you. You are the leader. You should be the one answerable to the people, doing the right things. You're the chief person, and you should be in charge. We have too much of delegated responsibility here. That shouldn't be.
Very briefly, because we're fast running out of time, we've got less than 5 minutes now. Are you going to stick with the Labour Party, given the disarray that's in the party?
The disarray is caused by government.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who
No, that's what I'm telling you. Yes.
Are you going to stick
I'm in Labour Party.
And are you going to stick with the Labour?
Well, I'm there because I'm there. It's not something I can tell you now. I am there today. And as time go on, Charles, if it changes, I'll tell you. But I'm a member of Labour Party. And these are one of the things I said I would do. I will make sure that parties work. I will protect democracy and make it work.
Some would say Labour Party isn't working under you.
No, it has nothing to do under me. I'm not the one running the party. Charles, I've been involved in all this. If government today is democratic and they want democracy to thrive, all these things will work.
Right.
Put me anywhere.
So you can only make the change if you're president.
I've told you, Charles, I saw this we had a problem under Yar'Adua, for example, in my party. He told it in front of me, he told the INEC chief, I don't want all these party issues in front of me. I want it to happen, but I don't want all this. So you have to say you're democratic, practice it, believe in it, whether it favors you or not. Because that's what you want. You want to build a better, decent society that is organized.
Right. Okay. We've got a couple of minutes left before we have to go, which is rather sad because I'm enjoying talking with you. Before we go, after what's been clearly a rather depressing discussion about the future of Nigeria, cheer us up with one thing that could make this country look better to the world.
Well, Charles, I wish I can tell you. The only thing I can tell you is that it is what is happening can be turned around with a competent leader that has the capacity and compassion to serve. Because we have low-hanging fruits. There's nothing in following the rule of law. There's nothing in ensuring orderliness. There's nothing in fighting corruption. You know, people say it's difficult. It is not. If you are not involved, you reduce it by 50%. There's nothing in investing in critical areas of development.
Alright guys, first of all, I want to thank those that watched to the end because this was a long, powerful video. Because you see, this is why I said that P2B is the greatest nightmare of APC, and that's why all of them are working together not to make sure that this man does not win any election. Because they are aware that if this man should win any election, should win these presidential candidates, that all of them will lose their seats. They are aware that they will all lose their seats if this man called P2B finally wins the election. So they are fighting him by all means, trying everything possible to make sure this man does not win that election. And that's what is trying to happen again, because ask yourself, why is this massive defection to APC? All these are plans going on the ground to make sure that this man does not win. This man is the greatest force that APC have ever fought against. P2B is the greatest opposition in Nigeria as of right now. P2B have proven that he is the person that will change this country for good, because the evil and the corrupt leaders we have are aware of that. That's why they are fighting him. Ask yourself, why is that if P2B says something, all the APC allies will drag him online, trying to spoil his name. But the thing that P2B name cannot be spoiled, because this man left office 8 good years and left billions of naira in office. Billions of naira in office. This is what P2B left in office. P2B have no record of thief or stealing anything in 8 good years. He had the chance to do that, but he didn't do it. Why? Because this man has shown that he has integrity, he is well disciplined and well committed to bringing good in the land. He have committed himself to bringing happiness in the face of Nigerians. Just air your views in the comment section. Because in my video, don't forget to subscribe. Again, keys were sitting, guys.